like, well, if you pay a wide receiver a bunch of money, like they're going to have to, and I guess they paid Tyreek and you still got Tua, who was a top 5 pick, but like, if you're going to pay Justin Jefferson, you're not going to be paying the quarterback then, right? That's what we're assuming there, Dan? Are you assuming the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Minnesota, I've said for like a year now, dude, like, what's the number one way to keep Justin? Like, that's the only thing that matters. And that's why I think you're going to at some point have to make a jump with quarterback, as good of a player as Kirk is. But you're not going to be able to afford both Justin at a high number and Kirk Cousins at the number that he's probably going to be able to command in free agency.
They're saying $40 million a year or something like
for
that?
Justin?
Yes. For Kirk.
At a minimum.
How many years, you think?
3?
Yeah.
Probably 3 with the whole fully guaranteed thing again.
$50 million?
I think closer to 50 than 40.
35.
Coming off that injury.
Burrow just got 55. Hurt got what?
You're saying
Lamar?
Joe Burrow. You can't put
but that's the market.
Category.
That's the market. But Kirk had a great year.
Great year.
Kirk played at a high level, but
Kirk's fresh out of the quarterback series too. He looks awesome.
You're not paying $50 million.
If they don't pay him,
when has
who do
Kirk
they go
ever
get?
signed a deal and we're like, oh, that was less than what we expected? It's always like, whoa.
Minnesota's going to have to make a move at quarter. Like last year, they tried to go up to get Anthony, and at least per reports, I don't know if those are 100% accurate, but they tried to go get Richardson. I could see them moving up again this year. I saw someone, maybe it was Chris Long or Kyle Long, said entertaining of trading Justin Jefferson to somebody, New England, and going up and getting a quarterback for that, like trading Justin for that high pick and going to get a quarterback.
So what's New England? They're not getting a quarterback? Oh, yeah, you're the guy that says they don't need a quarterback up there in New England. They got the number 3 overall pick. There's allegedly 3 NFL guys.
You think quarterback's going to save New England?
Buddy, they haven't had a quarterback.
Start the savior.
Absolutely.
Start the comeback.
Before a $35 million receiver would.
Happened with the Chargers.
Dan, they had guys that were scoring that would score less on that quarterback carnival than everybody else that was out there playing quarterback.
I could probably.
They got Bailey Zappi up there. He couldn't even get it to the 4. They were saying they couldn't even get the ball to the 4.
Didn't have enough.
Very tough.
They just stunk. That offense just stunk.
It's the worst offense in the league. They were the first team ever to hold 3 straight teams to 10 or less points and lose all 3 games. Like, you need a quarterback there. I mean, we could have Randy Moss and Justin Jefferson, but who gives a shit if we don't have a guy that can throw?
And this is the first time they're at 3.
Yeah, this is the highest we'll ever be.
I'm with that, but that offense didn't stink just because of the quarterback.
I agree.
So if taking a quarterback at 3, I say this all the time. Give me the last top 5 quarterback that flipped a bad football team.
C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
Joe Burrow.
Cam Newton.
2. And they've happened recently.
Cam Newton.
Cam.
Burrow.
But Cam didn't do it immediately in Carolina.
Well, I saw him yesterday.
6 wins, rookie of the year, and then a couple years
But they got to 2015. It just doesn't happen that much.
Andrew Luck.
But that wasn't a bad team. That was the Peyton year.
We're number 32. We're number 32 out of 32. It was on a T-shirt. I saw it. I seen the shirt. I still got it.
That was the Peyton year.
Big fun.
Was that?
That was the Peyton year.
You think Peyton was the only one that was cut from that team? They painted the walls, brother. You weren't there. They were all cut.
There was 40 guys in that first team meeting. That's all that was left.
Yeah,
you can have 90 in that off-season program. We had 40 guys in that room.
Yeah, so
You
Andrew
already
Luck.
said C.J. Stroud?
Yep.
Stroud.
Stroud, Luck, Joe.
Just doesn't happen that often. That's what I'm saying. It's like for all the quarterbacks that do get picked in the top 5, more often than not, like those aren't the saviors that maybe their talent it should allow them to be because the team around them is so poor.
All right, Darius Butler golfed with Drake May yesterday for 4.5 hours. And
give me some thought on his personality.
Love him, but be a guy I think guys will rally around. Loves ball. Not really caught up in a lot of the other, won't be high maintenance. Not to say that the other guys are or will be, but awesome.
Big dude.
Awesome.
He said number 1.
Big.
He said number 1 overall pick. He said takes him number 1.
Now, I know how you guys feel in the media about Caleb Williams. You've probably seen him play more than I have. But after spending that time with him, once again, the build, obviously he has the skill set, the personality traits, I think, when you're coming into because when you come into a locker room as a top 3 pick, which we assume he'll be, a lot of things are going to be handed to him. You're going to be the quarterback of the team. You're going to have to be in that leadership role. So I just think kind of like those things, I think he fits that bill. When teams sit down with him, and the people around him as well, his family, his representation, I think they'll fall in love with him.
I've said for months now, don't lock Caleb in at number 1. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe that because as talented as Caleb is, I think there's stuff that teams are going to be, like diving into to figure out. I called some of Drake's games in college. Mm-hmm. He's Big Ben to me. Like he is He's 6'5",
big boy.
225, 230 now.
And still, you can tell he'll be.
He could put on 20 pounds
exactly,
easily.
Yeah.
He's a like one of those athletes. When you watch him move, you're just like, he's a little bit not refined. He's sloppy mechanically at times. But he is a freak.
Is that good or bad, though? Is that good because you can take him and...
But yeah, I mean, I think that's always good because you can't teach the stuff that Big Ben had. You can't teach the stuff that Josh has. You can always get guys mechanically to be more consistent.
So
But can you, though?
CJ, Patrick Mahomes,
fall back.
all these, he's Drake May, I believe, great basketball player as well. I think baseball player as well. So, like, all the off-script plays I think he can also make, which Caleb is what everybody's kind of putting over so much. It's like this dude's 6'5", 235 pounds, and once you see like his family, his brothers are all
massive
houses.
humans.
They,
too.
I think the consensus amongst a lot of the decision makers, at least, are like, hey, if you do pass on Caleb Williams, and he ends up being, this generational talent, because you got people on record, on wax, saying, hey, I'd take him over Peyton Manning if they were in the same draft. Andrew Luck,
John Elway,
Trevor Lawrence.
Of that ilk. So that's his, potential, which is wild to say, in my opinion. But I think he still goes one because of those things. You don't want to be that
Out of
person
fear,
who
I
passes.
think team's legit.
I think that
that's
plays
the
into it.
dumbest thing in the world.
I think it plays
But
into it.
does it happen, though?
But-
Hey, I don't want to. We look terrible. If we
It
pass this
happens.
guy.
Bryce Young.
Especially
Bryce Young, Steph Curry.
Yeah, it just happened with Bryce Young.
I don't think Carolina took Bryce Young because they were scared that he was going to be really good if he went too. I think Carolina
They're
took
just
Bryce
dumb.
Young.
You were so high on that coaching staff and every piece that they surrounded Bryce with, right?
Totally, yeah.
Like you were there, you almost took a job with him, right?
Yeah, I had
an
conversation
opportunity,
with him.
right?
Yeah, I was shocked at that coaching staff.
Glad you didn't, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet you're pumped.
Thank God.
You didn't
I
go to
was just-
U2 last night. You should feel good about that, too.
I was just shocked at that it was so bad so quick, And I think part of it was the offensive line underperformed in Carolina at such a shocking
Big step
level.
back.
Like that offensive line was going to be or thought to be so much better, and the offense never changed throughout the year schematically. I hate when coaches go from you call plays to you call plays back to you calling plays. I still think Bryce is going to be a really good player. Absolutely.
You believe in Canales? You know him well?
I don't know him well. I do know this. I like the fact that because everyone automatically goes like, hey, what's he going to do for Bryce Young? I don't even think it'll be about Bryce. I think it'll be about the offensive line. I think the thing that he did with Baker was they didn't hold the ball. Like, they got the ball out of Baker's hands. They don't stress the offensive line in that capacity. You guys know that. So not stressing the offensive line would be a big deal. But I've said this, Coach, 2025. Don't talk to me about Bryce Young until 2025. Yeah. That roster, offensive line-wise, needs to be rebuilt.
Nobody wants to hear that, though.
2025.
When you go number one, nobody wants to hear that.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
No doubt. But that's why that we get impatient.
2030.
Dan, don't you think what C.J. Stroud did down there in Houston is going to set an unrealistic expectation for every fan base?
New England.
For instance, the Colts. They got Anthony Richardson down there. He's a rookie the same year as C.J. Stroud.
Not good.
He had 5 touchdowns in the first 4 weeks. Somebody never saw him play football again.
Beat Stroud.
He was hurt in 4 out of the 5 of the games. Never saw him play football again. Very excited for him to come back. And will he survive? We don't know.
We'll find out.
We hope so. We certainly hope so. But we're looking down there at C.J. Stroud, Houston. We're like, oh, the next 10 years in Houston are a problem. You're saying that is not a real thing we should label on anybody? Like Bryce Young should not have that expectation? Because look at that Houston roster.
Yeah.
That Houston roster is way better than that Carolina roster.
Now it is, but it was no name wide receivers.
Yeah.
We had no idea who those guys were before the year started.
Noah Brown.
We had no clue who anybody was.
Well, I think part of it is...
And they became...
Well, part of it is we didn't know who Tank Dell was going to be, who was obviously a really important part of the football team. Nico Collins went from this... I think Nico was a 4th or 5th round pick he's played himself into being a real number 1 conversation wide receiver. The thing that...
Schultz
was a good player in Dallas.
Yeah.
I think the thing that got lost in the conversation offseason wise of Houston was that offensive line was so much better than Carolina's. They got Tunsil. Their interior 3 are freaking awesome, and their right tackle, who stayed healthy finally, was a really good player. So, that's the difference.
Yeah, but Slowick, too, right? Doesn't he deserve it?
There was unknown of how good Bobby Slowick was going to be and all
but
that.
Can't they make the offensive line better?
Houston?
Offense coordinators.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhat, but that's still a good group. That offensive line's a good group.
You write it on your hand, right on your hot potato. Isn't that what you used to write on yours? Hot potato. Get that ball
Is that
out.
what you wrote?
Get it out.